Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining us for an introduction to Picture Perfect STEM. I'm Emily Morgan.
And I'm Karen Ansberry. And we are the authors of the Picture Perfect Science and Picture Perfect STEM series for elementary teachers, published by NSTA Press. We also co-wrote Teaching Science Trade books with Dr. Christine Royce. We're both former elementary teachers and curriculum specialists, and we facilitate science workshops together nationwide, and we're both children's book authors. I recently released a picture book called Nature Did It First, Engineering Through Biomimicry. And Emily is the author of the Next Time You See series and Never Stop Wondering.
So Karen and I are both from the Cincinnati area, and we both taught at Mason City Schools in Mason, Ohio. We started working together to help teachers integrate science and literacy nearly 20 years ago. And our first book, Picture Perfect Science Lessons, was written to help upper elementary teachers learn to combine reading with science. We feel strongly that every teacher is a reading teacher. But at the time, there weren't many resources available to help science teachers integrate literacy. The success of our first book led to the publication of more Picture Perfect Science Lessons, followed by even more Picture Perfect Science Lessons. But what do you do after even more? We couldn't come up with a title. So instead, we decided that teachers could use ideas for integrating reading with STEM. So in 2017, we published Picture Perfect STEM Lessons for both the K2 and 3-5 grade bands. So Picture Perfect STEM has three main components: the picture books, the 5Es, and the STEM disciplines. And those are represented here by these gears. The largest gear in the diagram is STEM because science and engineering standards and practices, technology and mathematics drive the lessons. Everything else, the picture books, the reading strategies, the 5E model, and so on, work together to support student learning of the STEM concepts. So of course, these STEM disciplines are science, technology, engineering, and math, and these are at the heart of our lessons. And all of our lessons are sequenced using the 5Es. So the 5E model is a constructivist model of learning where students have an opportunity to explore concepts before the explanations. And this was developed by the Biological Sciences Curriculum Study, BSCS, out in Colorado. And so every lesson starts with an engage activity, and then the students explore, usually in a hands-on way. We explain. In the explain phase, we have students explaining what they've learned, and we also introduce the nonfiction and vocabulary during the explain phase. For the elaborate phase, students apply what they've learned to a new situation, and this is often where we have a design challenge in the STEM books. And evaluation takes place all the time, but we do have a formal evaluation at the end of every lesson. And of course, the picture books. Picture books, both fiction and nonfiction, make STEM learning more engaging and meaningful.
So in addition to writing, we travel to schools, universities, and conferences to teach educators how to implement our lessons. We also facilitate online courses, and we've been leading customized webinars for school districts. And we also have a popular train the trainer model. But everything we do revolves around this mission statement. We are dedicated to making STEM education more meaningful for children through the use of hands-on explorations, engineering design challenges, engaging stories, and interesting nonfiction. Our goal is to help teachers seamlessly integrate STEM and reading so that students are reading to learn as well as learning to read. So let's talk a little bit about children's literature. Think about these questions. What was your favorite book as a child, and why was it your favorite? And you can type your answers in the chat. So maybe you remember these books because you related to the characters, You remembered the vivid illustrations. You had fond memories of the person who read the book to you, or maybe you felt proud that it was the first book you could read on your own. But what nobody mentioned was their fourth grade science textbook. And there's a good explanation for that. So we like the way reading experts Stephanie Harvey and Ann Gudvis say it. They say picture books, both fiction and nonfiction, are more likely to hold our attention and engage us than reading dry, formulaic text. Engagement leads to remembering what is read, acquiring knowledge, and enhancing understanding. So we want to tap into the magic of picture books and make STEM concepts more meaningful for children. Our program is structured around the use of read-alouds, and there are many good reasons to use read-alouds in a STEM lesson. Reading aloud gives you the opportunity to model the reading strategies of a proficient reader, and we suggest a variety of reading comprehension strategies throughout our lessons to model as you share a book. We give specific questions to ask or activities for the students to do as they are listening. And for students who struggle with word-by-word reading, experiencing a book as a listener can free their minds to concentrate on the science or engineering concepts being presented. And finally, research shows that being read to is the single most important activity for future reading success, which is a very powerful reason for reading aloud.
So we use the reading comprehension strategies from Strategies That Work by Stephanie Harvey and Ann Gudvis. And these strategies are embedded throughout the read alouds in all picture perfect lessons. And these strategies are probably familiar to you. They're making connections, questioning, visualizing, inferring, determining importance, and synthesizing. And these are used where appropriate in each lesson and are seamlessly embedded into the 5E model.
So why use picture books to teach STEM? Well, picture books can ground STEM concepts in a meaningful context. So for example, the concept that energy can be transferred from place to place by electric currents is the focus of a lesson called Light It Up. In this lesson, students are introduced to a little boy named Orion. Orion is afraid of the dark. After learning about energy transfer through currents, students apply their learning to solve a design problem involving Orion. So here's the challenge. Design a nightlight for someone like Orion who is afraid of the dark. Students can apply their scientific understandings about circuits to build a nightlight that lights up, can rest on a nightstand, and contains a switch. And you can see some creative solutions here. So if you know anything about design thinking, you know that the most important principle is empathy for the person you are designing for, the client. After hearing the story Orion in the Dark, students have instant empathy for this little boy. So stories like this one can really be powerful tools for building empathy and grounding engineering challenges in a meaningful context.
So you can also get a lot deeper into the content when using picture books. Take this standard, for example. There might be 1 or 2 pages in a textbook about plate tectonics and mapping. But if you begin with an engaging true story, such as solving the puzzle under the sea, Marie Tharp maps the ocean floor, you can hook the students and then take them much deeper into the content. So I'll tell you a little bit more about this lesson. After hearing the inspiring true story of Marie Tharp, who helped create the first scientific map of the ocean floor, students study her map, and you can see that in the bottom left corner here, the map that she worked on. And they look for patterns and where these mountain ranges occur in the ocean floor and above ground. And they use a model to explore how sonar measurements help us map undersea mountains. Then they learn how mountains form from a nonfiction book called How Mountains Are Made. They use Google Earth to observe patterns in where mountains are located. both above and below the sea. And finally, students summarize in writing how Marie Tharp's maps change the way we look at the earth. So every component of this lesson is inspired by the book, Solving the Puzzle Under the Sea. And all together, these pieces comprise a rich, multi-genre, multimedia text set that explores the topic of plate tectonics in a deep and meaningful way.
All of our lessons follow the same teacher-friendly format. And we're going to use a lesson called Feel the Heat as an example. So we typically engage students with a story, either a fictional or a true story. And here we can ask questions to uncover what students might know about a topic. We can determine any misconceptions that they might hold about the science. We can establish a theme for the lesson or set up opportunities for investigations or design challenge that follow. And sometimes the story can really just level the playing field. It can provide a common experience for all of the students in your class, helping to develop schema for kids without those experiences. Sometimes the book we use in this phase serves as a mentor text for writing activities that we do later in the lesson. But in general, our goal is to hook the reader with an engaging story and draw them into a STEM lesson. Summer Sun Risin' is a tribute to childhood, farm life, and family togetherness. It's set in Texas in the 1950s. And we really love how the illustrators' paintings depict the family's daily activities. They're vivid and sun-drenched and really beautiful. And we love how the reader can trace the sun as it appears to travel across the sky. The author uses words like blazin', burnin', and glarin' to describe the warming effects of the sun. You can read the book aloud, or even better, the author recommends singing it. I'm going to put Emily on the spot here and ask her to sing the last few verses.
Well, okay. Dog on the stoop, cat on the rail, ma in the swing, reading the mail, pa by the door, me tucked in bed. Summer sun sleeping, stars overhead. Summer sun's sleeping, only stars overhead.
So after reading, we ask questions that lead us into our exploration about the sun's warming effect on the earth. So questions like, what did you notice about the pictures of the sun in the book? What do you think the author was trying to show about the sun in his poem? And why do you think he used words like shinin', glarin', blazin', and burnin' to describe the sun? Then we ask some text-to-self questions, such as, how do you keep cool on a hot summer day? And do some places outside on our playground feel hotter than others?
So that's the phenomenon that guides this lesson, that some surfaces on our playground feel warmer than other surfaces. So to make sense of this idea, the students need common hands-on experiences with observing and comparing temperatures. To do this, we use an infrared thermometer, which you can see pictured here. And the reason we use this type of thermometer is that it takes surface temperatures, not air temperatures. So you just aim and push the button, and you can instantly record a surface temperature and share that data with the students. So the teacher uses the infrared thermometer to record the temperature. The students choose 4 areas on the school grounds that they want to compare the temperature in the sun to the temperature in the shade. And so when they get the data from the infrared thermometer, they record that in their data tables.
So in the explain phase of our lesson, learners articulate their ideas in their own words. And in this lesson, we encourage kids to share their data and observations and let us in on what they're thinking and wondering about the phenomena that they observed outside. So here in this picture, the teacher's graphing the data that the class collected to help students analyze it and notice patterns. So in the explain phase of the 5Es, the teacher's role is really to clarify their concepts and introduce the scientific terminology. And we use an anticipation guide to help students determine the important parts of the next read aloud called The Sun, Our Nearest Star. So first they give thumbs up or thumbs down as you read each statement, and then they listen for the answers as you read the book aloud. So after reading, we revisit the anticipation guide and discuss the answers.
So all this leads to a design challenge where we ask students, do you ever get hot on the playground? And where do you go to cool off? Do you think you could design a structure for the playground that would reduce the warming effect of the sun on you and your classmates? So using what they learned about how the sun warms different surfaces, they design a model of a shade structure out of everyday materials. And you can see one pictured here. They test the structure by placing an ice cube underneath it and another ice cube outside of it, and they watch to see which one melts first.
Next, we evaluate the students' understandings with a short writing piece about how well their designs solve the problem of staying cool on the playground. And we have students compare their designs and discuss that there are multiple solutions to every problem. So a simple extension of this lesson might be to walk around the school grounds and brainstorm ideas for keeping the area cooler during the hotter months. So for example, could you replace darker surfaces with lighter colored materials? Could you install shade structures or plant trees in certain places?
So each lesson in the Picture Perfect STEM books has a STEM at Home page where students can share with someone at home what they learned and also what their favorite part of the lesson was. And then there's an activity to do at home together. For example, for this lesson, they compare how long it takes for ice cubes to melt on white construction paper compared to black construction paper. And if they don't have construction paper at home, they could use a black t-shirt, and a white t-shirt and compare.
There's a box at the end of every lesson that can help provide opportunities for differentiation. So for students with really high interest or who've already met the lesson goals, you can have them choose one of these questions or pose their own question. They conduct their own research and then design their own procedures or create a solution to a problem. And then for students who are struggling to meet the lesson objectives, you can provide the question and then guide them in the process of collecting research or helping them design procedures or solutions. So students can communicate their findings through a science notebook, at a poster session, or maybe a gallery walk, or they can produce a media project. So every picture perfect lesson contains all of these different pieces to help you teach STEM in a meaningful way, all within the context of 2 engaging picture books.
So in these lessons, students are actively trying to figure out how the world works, which is science, and design solutions to problems, which is engineering. So they're using the science and engineering practices. Now, these practices are just one dimension of 3-dimensional learning. This lesson used the practices of planning and carrying out investigations, using mathematics and computational thinking, and constructing explanations and designing solutions, like how to stay cool on the playground. So the disciplinary core ideas here are about conservation of energy and energy transfer, as well as an engineering core idea of developing possible solutions. And then for our cross-cutting concepts highlighted here are cause and effect, and scale, proportion, and quantity. So you can find these 3 dimensions in detail for each lesson in the appendix of the Picture Perfect STEM books. So this lesson starts with the phenomenon that some places on the playground are warmer than others, And these three dimensions come together to help students make sense of that phenomenon and to apply their learning to a design challenge.
So let's talk a little bit about how you can help students make sense of phenomena using picture-perfect STEM lessons. Phenomena-based learning taps into kids' natural desire to make sense of their world. This approach encourages them to observe natural phenomena, such as blacktop feeling hotter in the sun than in the shade. They can investigate how or why it occurs, or even design solutions to problems that arise from the phenomenon. So picture-perfect STEM lessons present a variety of engaging phenomena through stories, videos, and observations. And here are just a few examples.
In a lesson called From Seed to Tree, students are presented with the phenomenon that a tiny maple seed that can fit right in the palm of your hand will grow into a towering maple tree. So they explore maple seeds and they even dissect one to find that little embryo that's inside of the round part of the seed. And then they learn from the nonfiction book, Next Time You See a Maple Seed, that the material for growth for plants comes chiefly from air and water, and that this process is called photosynthesis.
In a lesson called A Birthday is No Ordinary Day, students are introduced to the phenomenon that some days in a year have more hours of daylight. And they also make sense of the idea that a birthday marks one full trip around the sun. And we use this really awesome book called A Birthday Cake is No Ordinary Cake by Deborah Fraser. So in this lesson, we relate the phenomenon to the students' own birthdays. And what's more meaningful than a birthday when you're 7 years old?
In Robots Everywhere, students listen to a book about some cute household robots, and then they notice that the parts of a robot depend on the job that it does. So we model a robot arm, which you can see here, whose job is to sort pasta. So one student is the robot arm and the other is the programmer. And the programmer reads the program to the robot and the robot has to follow it. And then we read about real robots in the book Robots from National Geographic by Melissa Stewart.
The idea that some animals, like elephants, live in groups while others don't is the phenomenon that we explore in Better Together. Now, I don't know about your location, but in Ohio, we can't directly observe herds of elephants, but we can go on safari with elephant experts, Dr. Joyce Poole and her brother Bob Poole, who is her cinematographer. So after observing elephant behaviors, we read a book called Animals That Live in Groups to gather more evidence for why some animals live in groups.
Students explore the phenomenon that a pill bug rolls into a ball when touched. They observe these common animals and learn from a nonfiction book called Next Time You See a Pill Bug how their structures and behaviors help them survive. Then they design their own pill bot, a robot that mimics the structures of a pill bug to solve a human problem.
So we'd like to share our website where we have more information on our program, including upcoming events. We have additional resources on here, and we also have correlations to state and national standards. And we'd like to point out a resource that might be really useful for you. This is our 80 lesson alignment to the NGSS that you can print out from our website. So if you're interested in learning more about Picture Perfect, you can contact your state's NSTA sales rep, and they can guide you to the best resources to get you started using Picture Perfect. So you can purchase trade book collections, the lesson books, class packs of all the materials you need to teach a lesson. You can buy lessons by grade level and even individual lesson modules that contain a lesson booklet, the 2 read alouds, and a class pack of materials. So these are great ways to get started with Picture Perfect.
And we're so excited that the student pages are now available in Spanish. So Karen and I typically spend our summers traveling all around the country and doing teacher workshops. But this summer, for obvious reasons, we have moved these workshops online. So we want to let you know about these. We have one set for July and another for August. So if you'd like to learn more about these learning opportunities, you can get all the details at pictureperfectscience.eventbrite.com. We're using Eventbrite to do our registration for these. So all of those learning opportunities are listed there.
So before we take questions, we'd like to share this quote from Mariel Milano, who is one of the writers of the Next Generation Science Standards. And she says, students entering kindergarten this year will likely enter job fields upon graduation that have not yet been developed, using knowledge that has not yet been discovered and tools that have not yet been engineered. It will be the responsibility of elementary teachers to prepare their students for a changing world by arming them with the science and engineering background necessary to one day make informed choices and decisions. And we hope that we can help you prepare your students for an ever-changing world. So thank you for spending this time with us today, and stick around for a Q&A.
And feel free to email us with the questions, or you can use the contact form on our website. We'd like to invite you to join our Facebook group and events page and follow us on Twitter. And now we're going to open it up for questions.